My studies began in 1970 when I was 17 years old, and I went to Banff, Alberta, Canada for a 6-week summer class. And based on that experience, I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology to study professional photography. And after that, I emigrated to Canada to work on a photograph conservation project in 1975, and stayed in Canada for a number of years teaching in art schools. I believe that photography is both an art and a craft. I think that the techniques of photography are very important to learn to be able to express ideas, or at least that's the way it worked for me. If I had my skills down pat, then I could get across an idea that I had with photography. Someone left a package of paper in a darkroom once, and that began my experimentation with photograms and laying objects down on paper. And that led in subsequent decades to more photogram work, but thinking about making imagery without a camera. And eventually, in 2007, I started collecting expired photographic paper, and that left behind the cameras completely and strictly darkroom techniques. The dates on the packages of the expired paper place them on a timeline in my imagination. I'm looking at an entire century when I see these papers. And for example, in this piece, these are the years of the Second World War. In fact, I believe I started this one in 1938 to include some early German aggression. But each one of these papers represents a specific year in that time period. And so to me, that is a portrait of World War II. And it's coming just from the tonalities that existed in the leftover expired photographic papers. When I first process a paper, I am looking for the marks that have been left by time and circumstance. I'm looking for mold or silver mirroring, oxidation, the things that happen to a paper chemically when it just sits by itself. And I simply develop those sheets of paper. That's one direction, to see what's there. When I have plenty of paper to play with, I then allow myself to make specific marks by developing the paper, using a tied line to make a straight line on the page. That is when I'm doing intentional work, to make shapes that suggest other objects. My education is analog. I am strictly a product of the 20th century. Although the papers are rare, the light-sensitive silver gelatin papers, they still exist. And so does the chemistry. I can still go to a store and buy it. So for the time being, I make prints the way I know how to make prints, and they exist in the 21st century along with digital materials in a way that points to their own history. That's what I can do. When I first began, I looked for mentors, and I saw a film at the Rochester Institute of Technology. They were introducing famous photographers to us. And I saw a film about Dorothea Lange and the work she did in the 1930s. And I was so impressed with her going into the camps and driving all over the country to make work. And I noticed that she wore a beautiful silver cuff. And ever since I was 18 years old, I have worn a silver cuff, and it is absolutely a dedication to Dorothea Lange and my life as a photographer following hers. I don't intentionally have a feminine gaze in my work. In this expired paper work, no. But when I was photographing very specific feminist projects in the 1980s, absolutely, it was my intent. And make no mistake, the work was feminist, the gaze was feminist. But now, no, I'm using the history of photography as my subject matter. I had the good fortune of starting my career in the very early 1970s, and I had the benefit of the work that was done by 1960s feminists for me. And so jobs that may not have been available to me a decade earlier were open, and I was hired as a young photographer. And so I owe a considerable debt of gratitude to the work that was done for me. I think at this point they're still necessary, and I'm sorry they are. I wish that it was an equal playing field at this point, but now any help that women get to have a chance to succeed is absolutely wonderful and necessary, so I support it 100%.